Hello everybody, it's Noreen, and today we're going to be talking princess seams. Love Notions has been making the best patterns with princess seams, and there's so many. The last two new releases, Geneva and the Bluegrass, have both had princess seams. Plus there's other patterns like the Oakley vest, Lennox has princess seams, and of course there's Margot. This is the sweet little knit peplum top with princess seams, and it just fits so good because the magic of princess seams is the way we can just fit them so nicely to our body. We can add where we need to add and take away where we need to take away. And for me, or people like me, I'm very narrow across here and bigger in the bust. So what princess seams do for me is that I can actually adjust here and keep this nice and small while still having plenty of room for my bust. Plus I can add for my waist, and I can add it all the way across instead of just at the side seams. So it gets such a great fit. So today we're going to be talking all about how to make adjustments to patterns with princess seams. Let's go. Okay, let's take a look at princess seams. These are two patterns from Love Notions that both have the very similar types of princess seams. This is Margot, it's made for knits. This is the Bluegrass, brand new Bluegrass shirt and dress, and it is made for wovens. And I just want you to notice that they are different but the same. This one, if we overlap the seam lines, this one is smaller because it's knit, and so it's using negative ease. And this one is for wovens, so it's a little bit wider, even though these are exactly the same size pattern. This is oftentimes why we say it's sometimes hard to flop one for the other. It's much easier to make a woven in a knit than a knit in a woven, and you can see kind of why. Now that we've picked one of our amazing Love Notions princess seam patterns to work on, which I'm going to work on Margot right now, one of the things that we're going to do is blend sizes. How do we blend sizes with all of these pieces? And for me, what I do is I find reference marks that I'm going to use throughout the entire process so that I can blend things the same in every place. And what I mean by that is for the front, I'm going to use big grain lines and these marks here. And on the back, I'm going to use also the big grain lines, and then I'm going to use these notches. And so I'm going to use those as reference for everything as I'm blending, so that I know I'm blending sizes to that place and then to another place all across the board in the same way. Let's take a look at what that looks like. We'll go with the back here. Get a piece of tissue paper. Put it over this. There we go. And I'm just going to put a little pattern weight on here just to kind of hold it all down for a minute. And the first thing always that I'm going to do is draw in a nice big grain line, because I tend to need to make a few adjustments across my patterns, and some of them are for height. And so just having a nice big grain line just helps me keep everything nice and straight. I'm going to trace the back here. The fold, center front, right here. Got my fold. These are all really good reference marks for me. Sometimes this shifts when we're tracing, to be fair, and then I can put the stuff right back where I need it. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I want to be, go to extra large. So I'm going to mark these extra large notches right here. Now I'm going to show you with the side back piece why marking these notches and stuff is important. It's because unlike a full pattern that shows the whole arm's eye, so like if I'm a large, that's me, a large, I need to go all the way through the arm's eye, which is here. And this is going to be across the front of me too. This is also going to need to be a large. So I'm going to use these marks as kind of my cue, because this is kind of this upper part, right, of this bodice. So this is my cue to get large to here, and this is where I'm going to blend out to the next size. So you kind of have to figure out where on your body. This works really well for me. And then I'm going to just get my little handy dandy curve here. And I'm going to trace this large arm's eye right, upper arm's eye right here, large. And my neckline is also going to be large. Straight across for shoulder. All right, and then here we go. So I want to end up at extra large right here. So I'll take my curve and fit it. I like, this is one of the reasons I like to use a curve, because I can kind of find the curve that's already in the pattern, and then I can just swing it out. If you don't have one of these, you can still do this. You'll just, you know, use your eyesight and blend away. And here I am to large, right here at the bust, or ish, if this was the front, right? And then let's say I needed to be a different size for the waist. This is a waisted pattern, so it's ending right here at the waist, and looks like here's my line right here. All right, so in the waist, let's say I need to be a 2X or even a 3X in the waist. Then I'm just gonna come right here. Again, use my curve, and then just go out to either the 2X or the 3X and just blend that just like that. So here's my side back. I've got my grain line marked, I've got my notches marked, and I have followed large because I need that arm's eye to be large. Also, this is part of my upper chest right through here. So I need that to be a large, and then I get out to extra large here, and then out to the 2X here. Same here, large, extra large, 2X, and this is pretty straight. So if you put your ruler on here like this, you're gonna find that you're gonna pass by that extra large, getting to the 2X, if that's a blend that you would normally do. See, I'm passing extra large right in there, so that works. But that's how you blend the sizes on a princess seam pattern. Pick some reference points and then blend all your pattern pieces back to back, front to front, using those reference points, and your pieces will fit together great. All right, now we've got our pattern pieces all traced out and our sizes blended to what we like. Now there's some other adjustments we might need to make, and one of those is maybe where the bust line is. Maybe your bust line isn't where the pattern's bust line is. And I think in a princess seam especially, this is really important, because if you're higher or lower than this, none of the curves and ease are going to be where you need them to be. If your bust line is higher, you need this curve to be up here coming around your bust. And if your bust seam is lower, you need this curve coming here around the bust. So for me, I had to drop the bust line 2 entire inches. This is a bluegrass front that I'm showing you right now. And I had to move this whole thing 2 inches down. And there are 2 different ways that you can do that depending on the needs that you might have. So if you need to add length to your bodice as well, then you can actually just slice across the front of this, move the whole thing down what you need, and then you have added length plus moved your bust apex down. And even if what you need to move your bust isn't all the length that you need, then you can slice it across again and add more length. Or if it's more than what you need, so I only need to add about 1 inch in length. So if I have to move my bust apex down 2 inches, then I'm gonna come across here and then raise another inch back up to get the pattern to what I need. So we always have to be thinking in terms of length of our pattern as well. And so here on Margot, let's set bluegrass aside for a second. Here shows you that method where I just sliced across and added 1 inch and dropped my bust apex down 1 inch. And there's my little green paper that I added to show you that. That's super easy if you need to add length. If you don't need to add any length and still need to move your apex either up or down, the easiest way to do that is like you would do for any other darted bodice, And this is our dart right here. And so we would just take our ruler, draw a box around the bust line, cut it out, and move it down what we needed. I did this one as the sample. I moved it an inch. So I moved it an inch here, and then I did the exact same thing on this side. Cut the box, moved the whole thing down 1 inch. And here we go. We can check this now by overlapping our seam allowances. Here's our new apex lines. Overlapping these. And there's our little 1/2 inch that we have sticking out. So we've kept the ease that we need here, but we've still moved our bust apex down to where it belongs. So really quite easy to move our bust apex. When you do this, you'll have a little, this will be off a little bit, and you'll just take your curved ruler and you'll match it up to your seam lines, and you'll draw through there and make a nice curve. You'll true up these seams just a little bit. And so there we have it, 2 really easy and straightforward ways to move the bust line. And I will say that if you need to move it up, this works in the exact same way. You just go the other direction. It is possible that you might need to do a full bust adjustment or even a small bust adjustment on your princess seam pattern. And we're gonna work through that process right now, which is pretty straightforward. We've got our bust line here, and we're gonna put a mark right here at the seam allowance. That's why these seam allowances come in handy. We're gonna make another point right up here at this top part, and then we're gonna make another point right down here, and we just wanna make sure that we're staying outside of the seam allowance. So I'm just gonna go right here on the outside of the seam allowance. And then we are gonna draw lines connecting all of these points together. So we're gonna draw from here to here, and from here to here. And see how we're missing the seam allowance? We just wanna keep all the curve and everything that's designed into this pattern the same. And then we'll be using this bust line as well, right here. Now we're gonna make some cuts. We're gonna cut from the bottom up through the apex and all the way up here to this part. And then we're gonna cut little hinges in, and then we are gonna cut from the outside into here, but not through the dot. We wanna leave that as a hinge point too. So we'll just cut right through here. And then right up here. Now, if you happen to cut through, it's no big deal. We'll just put a piece of tape or something on there and fix it, but it looks like I missed it. Phew. We gotta make sure that we cut in here, right up to, but not through. And we're gonna cut through this one too. All right. And we need all those little hinge points so that this can all move, because our goal is to keep this as flat as possible as we move it. And see, as we move it, you can see that a dart is gonna open up here, and that's okay. We're gonna get rid of that dart. So we're gonna take a piece of paper and slide it up underneath here. It's gonna take a couple sheets, I think. Let's put this nice, pretty. Isn't this green bright and fun? I like it. And then we'll put our piece on here, and we are going to fasten down this side, and we're going to work by moving then this side. See how that works? So for me personally, I do better, like the fit is so much better if I do a 2-inch FBA. And so instead of just using the 1-inch that's provided, I did forever, just went ahead with the 1-inch that was already provided, and I have found that my things are fitting so much better if I go ahead and take the time to add even more. Sometimes I'll just add to the full bust piece that's already there, and sometimes I'll start from scratch. But since I'm showing you how to do the FBA today, we're doing it from scratch. This is the standard bust piece. And so now I have my 2 inches marked, and I am just going to slide this along here until this is parallel to to this line and making sure that all this is flat. So I wouldn't want to put it clear down here because see, that's not flat. So just slide it until this is parallel like that. And then we're going to tape this down. Now you can see the that there's a little bit of difference right here. And that's right and good, right? Because when we do an FBA, it lowers, we're gonna lower this front piece too, because it's gonna add some length in that's going up over our bust. But here's something I do. This is not anything I've seen anybody else teach, so I think I just made it up. But oftentimes when you do an FBA, you would cut here and just drop this down to match up with this piece here. I actually don't want to lose this curve and have to like redraw it, because now, if you can see, my bust apex has moved clear to here, which is great for me. I need that. If you don't need that, when we're all finished, you're gonna need to readjust too, which is great, fine. But sometimes I'll cut it up here, and then I'll pick this up and move this down and match my bust apex again to where it was. So now my bust apex line is exactly back where it was before. And you see that it's dropped this now down where it needs to be. And let's slide our other piece of paper. I probably should have done this first and made sure that this was all taped down really well. Slide our other piece of paper in here. Let's see if I can get that dart while I'm at it. I might be able to. Oh, I think so. All right, let's get this back up here where it was. There we go. All right, now we're gonna tape this all down. I should have taped this first. Don't be me. Tape it down. And I'm gonna come around. Just make a really nice curve. And you might have to practice this for your own body. And I made a muslin, to be fair. I made a muslin and then I pinched it in and out to see what it really liked to do and to see how much I needed. Then we can trim here, here. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off because it starts to get messy. So I would advise trimming it as much as you can as you go. Okay, here's what our piece looks like now with our full bust adjustment. The only problem is we have a big dart here. Now, technically we could fill this in, especially since it's knit. I prefer to take it out and get that fullness right here for my cup size. Like I'm making this into like maybe a, what am I thinking, an E or an F cup maybe even. I just need the fullness right here. I don't need anything over here. It's too far down for me. So I want to close this up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cut right here across the bottom of this dart leg that we've made. Right up to this original point right here, but not through. Then we're going to cut this direction up to there, but not through. All right, here we go. This is how this curve gets made. We're gonna take the bottom and take the top, and then we're gonna start to rotate until we can match this back up together. And look what's happening. Do you see this is opening here? We'll take this back together. And then we will fill in this part right here. This is how we get that bigger cup size going on here. Again, we're going to take our curve. I'm going to just match this up. See, it just takes the tip kind of right off of there. And I personally need that nice roundness right there at the apex for my bust. And there we have it. There's our piece with the FBA. Now, you're saying like, what do we do next? Because this won't match anymore. Look at this. If I put this apex to apex, look at all this extra that I have. So I need to lengthen this too, because we've lengthened this. So we know that we added, there's an inch here that we need to add. And it looks like there is 3/4 of an inch in this space. And whether you cut it up here or whether you cut it down here and just drop this down, this should be the same. So we've got 3/4 and an inch. So we need to drop this 1 3/4 inches. We need to add that in. I'm going to cut it right here on the apex, because see, I kept this apex the same. So I'm just going to put my piece of paper underneath here, draw in my 1 3/4 inch line, and because I use my line paper, I've lined it up with right there, so I could just slide this back up here, put this on here, tape it down, and there we have our FBA already done. Okay, so far we have been working on Margot, which is a waisted atop the bodice, and those things that we have worked on there would work the same thing for bluegrass. So we're going to talk about bluegrass for just a second. This is the cut line for if we were going to make the dress out of the bluegrass. And so everything that we've done on Margot would work exactly the same on here. But I thought it might be helpful to talk about it in its fullness as a shirt, because now we have to come down past the waist and we're getting into the hip area. And if you have big size jumps from, like for me, large to maybe 3X and down to extra large, then I highly recommend, after you've blended your sizes, to sew a muslin, get some nice big seam allowances around there so that you can take it out or pull it in if you need to and fit that way. Then you can transfer what you found for your body onto your pattern. But for now, I'm going to show you a couple of ways that I kind of figured out how to work by widening the waist in the bluegrass pattern. Okay, so we're going to talk about first just a little recap of some of the things we did on Margot that would work exactly the same here. One of those is how we blended sizes. The other is moving your bust point, and you can, depending on whether you need height or not, you can choose how to do that. The FBA for that kind of a princess seam would work the exact same thing here. The only thing is we've got this hip curve right here. So in this particular case, we would still want this bust point here. We'd still want this point here, but we always want to stay outside of the seam line, remember? We just don't want to really disrupt this edge. So in this case, I've put my ruler right here on this point, and then I'm going to come to where the seam line I've marked right here at the waist is, and I'm going to come down and mark here so that my line for an FBA would be like this for this. The other thing you can do is you can go from here to the waist and then from the waist down, and you would just have, you know, this piece that looks like this to move out. So those are two different ways that you could go all the way through here to work on your FBA. All right, let's say that at the end of the day, we decided we needed more room in our waist and possibly our hip area. So we're gonna start, and I'm actually going to put a little piece of tape on my strip of paper that I got here so it won't move, because we will be moving this piece. We're gonna just set it right on here like this. And then I am going to trace from just here above the bust down the edge of my pattern, right down here to the bottom. Okay. Now let's say this is the full bust piece and we've decided we need that inch, which on, you know, this is doubles because we have 2 of these. So that 2 inches that has been taken back out. So one of the methods to put this back in is to put it in here. And you can put it all in the front if that's where you need it, or you can split it between the front and the side. I'm just gonna show you something super extreme so that we can see what that looks like. So we're gonna say that we're gonna put it all right here in the front. So that's 1 inch, and we're gonna mark that just like that. So now I'm gonna take my finger and put it right here at the bust, and I'm gonna swing this whole pattern out to that 1 inch mark and trace from the bust down to the waist. Okay, so here we go. This is where we have some choices that we get to make. We can, I'm gonna put a little extra piece of paper right here. We can now pivot from here all the way back down to our original hip if we want to. So then we're only gonna add at the waist. Or we could add 1/4 inch at the hip. Or we could add the full inch at the hip. If we stay with this, I'm gonna show you here really quick. Because this swings out, if we stayed with the 1 inch at the waist, that's gonna add in almost 2 inches at the hip. So we might not want to add that much at the hip. So for me, my hip is pretty much what the pattern says. So I'm actually going to pull this back to the original. Take my little piece of paper off here. And then trace from the waist back down to the hip. And now let's see what this looks like. So then this is now, match all this stuff up. And now I could tape this down. And this is what my new pattern piece would look like. I've added all of this in right here. Just as easy as, you know, rotating that out. This method works really, really well. Now, what would happen if you actually just ended up needing just more than this simple method? And I actually wouldn't go over 1 inch. This inch is a lot. But if you need anything over 1 inch, then I am going to show you another method. If you have a full belly, this is kind of my version of a full belly adjustment for this particular pattern. We're going to cut along a line that we've made that's parallel to the grain line, up to the bust line, and then we're coming across, and then we're gonna stop at a pivot point here and cut in and make a pivot right here, okay? Then the next thing we're going to do is cut here at the waistline. Same thing, we're gonna cut through to there, to the seam line, and then we're gonna cut a pivot in. And if, oh, look, I cut through. I was just about to say, if you cut through, don't worry. We will just put a piece of tape on here. Do it again. Just like this. Okay, here we go. Now I'll get us a piece of paper and put it under here. All right. So let's say that I needed 2 whole inches in my waist and in this belly part of my hip. What I'm going to do is tape this side down. And then I'm going to mark my 2 inches from this line. Ooh, I barely have room. And then I'm going to take the waist and I'm going to put it right here at that 2-inch mark. And then I'm going to tape this down. Now I'm going to take this piece that's that's the hip piece, and see that it's like doing a reverse full bust adjustment. Basically, instead of opening up all the way down to here, we're just opening it here. And then we're going to put it on that 2 inches right here like this. And I've now added 2 inches at the waist and 2 inches down here, and it adds a little fullness here. So you might actually, this is where your muslin making comes in, you might actually end up seaming this down a little bit and then curving back out to this. And you're only going to know that on your own body. And at least that was for me. That's what I found out. You can see there's this little tiny gap. You see that? There's a little tiny gap right there. We'll just fill that in. It's so small. We'll just stick a little bit of paper back here and fill that in. And then just cut right up there. So I'm not worried about that at all. Just like that. That's how I did my full belly adjustment, and that would be a great way to add back in the extra to the FBA if you felt like you needed the extra in the waist and the hip that the FBA would provide. I want to make sure that I'm really clear that this 2 inches that I'm doing is for me personally. If you were just trying to compensate for the amount of fabric that's been taken out, the amount of ease that's been taken out, that the pattern is designed for, you'd only want to do this at 1 inch, because that's a 1 inch FBA that makes 2 inches across the whole garment, whereas my 2 inch FBA gives me 4 inches across the entire garment. Now let's say the last scenario would be is if you didn't need 2 more inches in the hip. You only needed it right here. Then you can make one more cut. I'll just make one right around in here. And you always just give yourself a little hinge so that you can move these things around. And then I can start to tilt this back in just a little bit and kind of take the swing out of the front. See, I'll put it over here on my grid so you can see. I'm kind of straightening that out. I wouldn't do much more than that, right? I would not swing this all the way back to the original hip. That's going to distort it too much, but I can swing it this much and tape that down. And then if you wanted to take the rest of this out, I would take it out from this side. I would repeat this process by cutting here, getting our little hinge, and then starting to pull this across. So you could do that way, or you could just kind of come down and take the rest of it out over here. But if we do it this way, we're kind of keeping the lines of the whole thing. Then at the very end, once you've decided whatever you're going to do, then you have to go back and fix your hemline. And it might mean that you're actually going to take just a tiny bit off of here. All right. So here's a sneak peek in totality of my Margot that I did. These are all the adjustments that I made and what it looks like. And we've covered all of those today. So here's where I added extra on the sides and added those up to that extra I needed in the waist, because this is a waisted garment. I did an FBA. Here's my FBA. I added that extra length that we needed to this one. I actually did it in 2 places on this one, as opposed to how I showed you when I did the FBA, where I only did it in 1. And here's the back, where I've added on to the sides of the waist here. And so yeah, just as a reminder, just find some marks that you can use. If there aren't any on the pattern that you want to use, maybe you want to adjust this high or this high, just make some registration marks equally on both sides and make all of your adjustments from those places. And yeah, the magic of Princess Seams should work for you. Thanks everybody for joining me today. We went through a lot on how to make adjustments on our patterns with Princess Seams. We looked at how to blend sizes, making sure that we had a reference point on each place so that we could keep everything in the way it was meant to be designed. We learned how to move our bust, which is super important. If I had to move my bust, like this wouldn't fit across me like it does. We learned to make a full bust adjustment if that was necessary. We learned how to drop our bust apex, and we learned how to blend out for sizes. And most importantly, I hope we learned that Princess Seams are the magic in pattern design. They can make fitting your pattern so personal and so custom. So Love Notions has a lot of patterns that have Princess Seams, and I hope now that you're going to want to try them. I'm going to see you later.